What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the Just Gonna Say It podcast every Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Just going to talk about some guitar stuff. Today, we're going to break down, I want to get your thoughts on this. This is going to be more about you than it is going to be about me. I'm going to give you my thoughts, but I want to get your thoughts on this conversation. So we just did a video yesterday about, the different strats and etc., focusing on the import ones because, we're trying to kind of keep it beginner. And of course, everybody freaks out because we talk about a $500 guitar like it's it's a budget guitar. So we're not going to talk about what is budget or not. So here's what I want to do today. I want to know from you, what are the most important factors in what a particular guitar at a particular price point should have or should not have, okay? And when I say that, what I mean by that is, what does a guitar have to have that costs $500 for you to buy it? What does a guitar have to have that costs $1,000 for you to buy it? How about $1,500? How about $2,000? And how about over $2,000? Okay, so those are the things that we're going to go through them one at a time. We're going to talk about $500 guitars first, we're going to go one at a time. And I have a pen, and we're going to make a list. And I really want to know. This is one of those things where people spout all kinds of BS in comment sections all over the internet. But if we were to really look at this methodically, I think you're going to be surprised by what you hear. Except for all the people that say price matters more than anything. But I'm not going to let you off. If you say price, we're going to have to talk about why. Okay, so we're going to really dive into this. And I'm very curious about it. It's just been something I've been thinking about. It's not even, I don't have a reason really. It's just, I know why I like guitars that I like. And I don't know why you like guitars you like. So we're just going to have a conversation about it. So that's going to be cool. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the like button if you like guitar stuff. Cause that's what we do basically every day of the week around here. Our real job is right there. DylanTalksTone.com. We make pickups. We are having some Black Friday sales right now. And so you can go over there and check them out. We're doing, custom engraved stuff. So like if you want a paisley engraved cover, or if you want a custom cover with your mom on it, or if you want something, that stuff's all on sale. You'll see it on the Black Friday page right there. Also, we're doing some package deals. So if it's center punches, Widowmakers, and humbucker size P90s right now, we're going to give you free pots and caps with a pair of those pickups. So CTS, Borns, push pulls, all the stuff. Center punches, Widowmakers, and humbucker size P90s. I think that's what we got going. And then, of course, we're going to be adding stuff. Then we're going to be adding stuff. So we're going to talk about, I want to talk about this. This is something that I am, the other thing. Here's the other thing. Go to DylanTalksTone.com. Link is right there. You can scan that thing. And we're going to start something new. I'm really excited about this too. I got the idea from another YouTube channel. I got the idea from a knife YouTube channel. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to be able to submit a picture of your rig. Now, this is going to enter you into a monthly contest. Okay. So we're going to feature one a week, and then we're going to pick a winner the first Thursday of every month. We're going to feature these on Thursday nights during the live stream. One a week that I'm going to pick the best one of the week, and then we're going to pick the best one of the month, and we're probably going to do some kind of little giveaway with it. I don't know what that means, but here is the criteria. I don't care, okay? But here's what you will be graded on. How good your picture is more than what your gear is, okay? So we don't care if it's a $200 guitar or a thing you made out of 2x4s. I don't care, right? We want you to share what your rig is. We think it's really cool. It doesn't matter what it is. So, just because it's an expensive guitar does not mean that it's going to win every time, but we're looking for unique and cool photos. We want cool photos. We want the art of what you're doing to come out in how you share it with us. Okay. So you're going to be able to upload that picture, and we are going to be able to do that with you. So that's what we want to do. I'm really excited about it. I've been following Best Damn EDC, Taylor, what's his name? does this every month. And basically, you know, people will show like a picture of their pocket knife and their watch and it'll be like all their everyday carry stuff, you know, their pocket knife and their watch and maybe a pry bar or, you know, something they use to organize their keys or whatever it is. And it's all laid out super cool. And they take a cool picture like for Instagram or whatever and put a filter on it and it looks neat. And then he picks some good stuff and then he gives some stuff away. So that's what we're going to do. I think it's cool. I'm excited about it. Okay. So, here's the deal. This is what I don't want to have happen with this conversation today. I don't want you to get into a competition about how cheap you want to be or the fact that the cheapest guitar is the best guitar in the pile, okay? I don't care about that stuff. What we want to talk about is what do you expect or what do you want in a guitar at a particular price point? Want, okay? This is all about desires, dreams, wants. If you can't afford it, that's okay. We all could never buy a $500 guitar. Okay. I understand what you're saying. Dream with me a little bit here. Work with me. Okay. So let's talk about it. So when we're talking about a $500 guitar, so let's get the 200. We didn't put $200 and $300 guitars on here because at that point, $200 and $300 guitars just need to work. They just need to be functional. They need to work as a guitar shaped thing. Okay. But at $500, that's a fair investment, even for anybody. It's for anybody, right? That's for any person. That's at least saving up for a couple of paydays, you know, for most people, even if you do have a little extra money. So what is important to you on a $500 guitar? I'm going to tell you what's important to me. I want, I tell you, for me, the perfect $500-ish guitar is going to be a Classic 5. So, Telly, you know, that's kind of my thing. So I want it to be a good representation of whatever the brand is, right? Like I want it to be, so if it's a Fender, if it's a PRS, if it's an Epiphone, if it's a ESP, like I don't want it to be a thing that's sort of the thing. Like I want it, you know, the Classic Vibe thing's kind of cool because it really gets you in there, right? Like it really feels like a good Telecaster or a good Stratocaster with that Classic Vibe kind of level of stuff. Yeah, I think, and I want it to be a guitar that I basically don't have to worry about anything beyond setup, right? Like I want to just set it up and I just want to play it. At $500, I also think I want it to have I want it to have all the features. So if it's a Telecaster, I want it to have all regular Telecaster stuff. I don't want it to just be one knob. I don't want it to be a stripped down thing. I want it to have all the things. And then at $500, I think I also want it to, well, let's see. I'll just leave it at that. Kind of give you an idea of what I'm thinking about here. So we're talking about $500. I got a notepad. And so here we go. Let's see. I'm going to go back to the beginning here. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Everybody's saying, hey, everybody. And no cop-out answers here. Like, literally, like, we're trying to have a conversation about this stuff. $500 or $5,000, the amp is everything. That's a stupid comment. I'm just going to tell you, we're talking about guitars. Like, come on, man. $500 guitar, I'd want it to be a great guitar with minimal mods, 10 to 20% of the original price. Okay, that's a good one. So it should be at $500, you shouldn't have to do a bunch of mods to it to have it be nice, right? So minimal mods, fully, full functioning, all the main features of a Strat or a Tele or of even like the PRS stuff. You want it to feel like a real PRS, right? Those $500 PRSs are pretty nice. And so are the $500 like, there's some really good ones, right? So what's the other thing? Oh, the Epiphones, right? So it should be a reasonable facsimile of the real thing. A good example of this that is not that, okay, would be like the really, really cheap Epiphones that are like $299 that have bolt-on necks, okay? To me, that's so far. It's not even the same construction, right? Like I want it to be kind of the real thing. And at least a copy of the real thing. Of course, it's going to be Asian at this price point. So, but we want it to be minimal mods to be good. I dig that. I dig that. That's a good criteria right there. I like that. Let's see what else. I started with $200 guitar, added setup, mods came later. Cool. Dipped in Tone does this every week. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Hang on. $500 guitar is going to be for the grandkids. Okay. I mean, you're a good grandfather if that's the case. At the $500 mark, I'm only looking for a nice finish in a color that I like. Okay. So you want the finish to be good. That's a good point. So we should be able to get something glossy if we want it, or matte if we want it, right? It shouldn't be like a stripped down spray can kind of thing, right? We want it to be right. Okay, that's cool. I dig that. For $500, it needs to stay in tune and not look overly cheap. Obviously not expecting $2,000 aesthetics, but not look like a toy. Good point. So we are above toy status here. We're into real instrument status here. This is this is great. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So we want to be above toy status. I dig that. The reason I'm writing this down is because as we go up in prices, we want to be objective about what we're adding, right? Because a lot of people are be like, well, I think you should have all of these features on a $500 guitar. Not really. You know what I mean? Nobody's saying stainless steel frets at $500, right? Nobody's saying, quilted maple top at $500 because we know in our heart of hearts that that's just not right. So this is great. This is exactly what I'm saying. Needs to stay in tune. Can it be used? No, we're talking about new stuff. It's not a stupid comment because it's my experience over 50 years of playing. Okay. I get it. I understand. You are I see all your comments, Cornblatt, and all of your stuff is always about, it's the amp, it's the amp, it's the amp, it's the amp. I get that, but we're not talking about amps today. We could talk about $500 amps next week if you want, but we're talking about guitars. Okay. We're talking about guitars. That's why I said it's a stupid comment, because it's not relevant. Oh, Dipped in Tone does the rig rundown thing. Oh, okay, cool. I get it. Okay, I see what you're saying. I don't watch that. I don't watch that podcast. I should, I guess. I've got $500 in a short scale built up 3/4 telly, pickups, work done myself. So you've done a bunch of mods for $500. That's cool. All right. So I think these are pretty good. Does anybody else have anything to add to the $500 thing? Because I think you're right. I think you should be able to get a real guitar. Shouldn't be a toy. We're above toy grade here. I say toy grade. A lot of the stuff on Amazon is kind of toyish. A lot of the stuff, the real inexpensive stuff is kind of toyish. The plastics are real gross, and the tuners barely work, and stuff like that. So I like this idea of it not being a toy. I like the fact that we should be able to choose kind of any look we want. Really, at this price point, it makes sense. Basic look. Of course, it's going to probably be urethane, right? It's going to be an inexpensive finish. It's probably going to be, on a natural finish guitar, it's probably going to be multi-piece body. So you might see a seam or two. It's no big deal at this price point, but I dig it. I dig it a lot. This is cool. So and I was trying to keep these to 15 minutes. I know we had the pre stuff, but okay, let's go to $1,000. So we've talked about $500. We kind of have our basic idea there. $1,000. If we're going to go to $1,000 guitar, I'm going to definitely want better electronics. So I'm going to want at $1,000, I'm going to definitely want a guitar that at this point, I should be able to get a Strat model or a Telecaster model or something, for example, that has pickups in it that do not need to be changed. At $500, it could be kind of a crapshoot. And And I think at $1,000, it should be a guitar that you never grow out of, right? Like you should be able to buy a Player 2, for example, with proper Alnico pickups, with a good switch, with good pots. All that stuff should be good to where if you're a person, because remember that the majority of guitar players are not us. We're all nerds about this stuff. But the majority of guitar players should be able to buy that guitar at $1,000 and not have to do a thing to it, right? Ever, if they don't want to, right? You should never have to be like, oh man, this guitar is great, except these pots suck, or this switch is really cheap feeling, or whatever. I think at $1,000, it should be, you shouldn't even have to worry about that stuff. So better electronics, I think that's definitely a thing. Let's see what else. Yeah, and of course, obviously, crappy guitars make great music. Bringing up Jack White, obviously. But if you were going to spend, okay, how about this? If you're going to spend $1,000 on a guitar right now, on a new guitar, on a new electric guitar, what would it be? What would it be? For me, it would probably be in the range of, I don't have a Reverend, and those are right around $1,000. Those would be cool. At $1,000, you can get something pretty unique, right? So you can start to get into really unique guitars at $1,000. You can also get into some artist instruments around that money. If you wanting to get like, some of the artist Epiphone stuff, you're starting to get into that kind of deal. You're starting to get, here we go. $1,000 guitar should only need minimal mods, just visual. Okay, see, that's exactly what we were talking about. Yeah. $1,000 straight neck, not a boat anchor. Okay, so relatively good weight. So now we're getting into a situation where wood selection, starts to come into play a little bit, right? Not for the tone. I wasn't talking about for tone. I'm talking about fairly stable tremolo. Okay, so somebody also mentioned now we're starting to get into maybe some name brand hardware, and some really better quality hardware in general, which is good. Some of the $500 and below guitars, it's kind of Swiss cheese. A lot of those screws and stuff are pretty bad. You can only use them a few times and they start to strip out if you're not careful. You got to be careful with them. Okay, these are good. This is good. I love this. This is great. I want to see name brand hardware and pickups, or at least higher tier in-house pickups, i.e. Gibson, Fender, PRS. Yes, I agree. 100% agree. And then better finish on frets. Okay, so now we're really getting into some actual workmanship characteristics, right? And somebody mentioned a gig bag. You're not always going to get a gig bag at $1,000 anymore. The reason is because gig bags have gotten expensive too, right? So here's the thing: is a gig bag now is 10 or 15% of the cost of $1,000 guitar. So that's tough to still get a gig bag at $1,000, but it can be done. PRS does it. Gig bag, and a good gig bag, not just a friggin' paper sack with a zipper on it, right? Like there's some of those crappy ones. Hang on one second. We got a super chat here from Tazzy Tim. Good morning. Thank you so much. He's from the other side of the world, so good morning. $1,000 is an odd denomination today. I see lots of good guitars. I would like 700 to 800, and then the next jump is 11 to 14. We're gonna get there. I agree. I think you're right. I probably should have picked this a little more strategically, but I was trying to be. People have in their heads, there's a weird psychology too, because I've done a lot of research on this, obviously, or owning a business. There's a lot of weird psychology that goes into why people pick particular price points, and $1,000 was one of them. It's the only reason I did that. At $1,000, you want locking tuners. Okay, so here's an interesting point. I don't want locking tuners most of the time. I don't really care. But to have a model that has the choice of some of those premium extras, even if they are in-house, right? So for example, a Schecter, $1,000 Schecter electric guitar is not going to have, fancy like Shaler or Goto or Grover. They're going to be some sort of in-house, but they're still going to be nice locking tuners available. Excellent point. So some of those features, right? So I'm not a Floyd Rose guy. At $1,000, what Floyd realistically, for those of you that really know, I'm not talking about that you knew like 15 years ago or 5 years ago even, because things have changed. If you've bought a Floyd Rose lately or some kind of double action tremolo, even on an Ibanez, different, theirs, what quality at $1,000 are we getting? Are we getting an import tremolo at $1,000, or are we getting an American or German or wherever they're made? Doesn't matter. The real one versus the Asian one. What are we getting at $1,000? I don't know, because it's been a while since I bought one. So if one of you with a Floyd that has bought one recently can chime in, that would be awesome, because I don't know that, and we should add that to this. Rounded neck edges and good fretwork. Yep, I agree. I got a $1,200 guitar and 12 others, and the expensive guitar needed neck adjustment, nut filed, and fret filed, same as all the others from $400 to $800. Okay, so let's talk about that. So we're gonna go through those repairs one at a time. So the neck adjustment, that's normal. That happens with every guitar that travels across any state line or country line, right? What can happen, the nut needed to be filed. Most guitars are going to be too high in the nut also. PRSs aren't, but Fenders can be quite often. Fret filed, same as all the others. So, and fret sprout can oftentimes be environmental too. Most of the time it is. On a very inexpensive guitar, fret sprout can come from the fact that the wood's not cured properly. But my guess is the guitar you're talking about is not a PRS. So that has to do a lot with how the guitar was treated before it was made, like the wood, but also environmental. So where you are versus where the guitar came from can have a big deal in that. Rounded neck edges and decent fretwork. So everybody's getting into the jam that at $1,000 you should have like a really good guitar, right? Like it should be really good. It should be, yeah. And honestly, that PRS stuff, that really high-end Cortex stuff makes me think of that, right? Like where they've put some extra time into that stuff. Yeah, I'm with you. I am with you. You're likely getting a Floyd 1000 or a Floyd 1500 if you're lucky, but probably a stretch. Okay, thank you. I thought it was going to be the Floyd 1000, which is still the import one, right? We're not all the way up to the Gucci one by then. Floyd 1000, Floyd 1500. Okay, so there's a couple people confirming that. Excellent. Awesome. Okay, so that's great. You guys, this is good. This is exactly what we're talking about here. Okay, so let's step this up to 1500. Let's step this up to 1500. So, what are we getting? What are we getting at 1500 that we're not getting at 1000? Now this starts to get harder, because this is obviously diminishing returns. But there's also some non-tangibles that start to come into play here when money goes up, right? How easy, let's just say this. If you have $1,000 to spend on a guitar, how easy is it to find one? Pretty easy. You can buy 1,000,000 guitars for $1,000 or 1,200, whatever. Once we start to get into 1,500 to 2,000, we start to, there are just as many choices, but we also are a little more choosy, right? So what does that mean? For what we're looking for. It was a Fender, and I have 2 PRSs, and I didn't need to do anything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the PRS SE stuff is always super clean. $1,000 and $1,500 are both import, or $1,000 and $1,500 are both import, but similarly to the old German, now U.S. made real Floyds. Okay, thank you. Like I said, I'm not super versed on them. I just remember that the ones with numbers after them typically are imported ones. But you're saying that they can be good anyway. I've yet to be impressed by a PRS SE or a Schecter in the $7,000 to $1,000 range, and some are truly great. Yeah, that just depends if you like that stuff or not. Let me tell you, I'm not a super big fan of guitars that are super slick like that. I don't like super shiny, slick urethane. I think I've talked about that before. It just feels like plastic to me. So I'm not a big PRS SE fan, and I'm not even a big Epiphone fan because of that. I just don't like how the finish feels. It's weird to say that. I just don't like how it feels. At $1,500, an attractive drop top with a great finish, higher end pickups, perfect frets, top end tuners. Okay, so now we're starting to expect some perfection. This is interesting. Okay, I'm not saying you're wrong or right. We'll get into that here. You're not wrong. I'm just saying. Yet to not be impressed. I apologize. Maybe I read that wrong. I'm sorry. Okay, so we want really, really, really good workmanship, right? We want really good workmanship. An attractive top, if it's got a fancy wood top on it. Some of that stuff's still going to be laminate, but they start choosing that stuff better, right? And also at that price point, you're gonna also want something. Yeah, you don't want imperfections in it, right? You don't want a $1,500 guitar with a natural top with a knot right in the middle of it, right? You want it to be good. So how important is it to some of or all of you at $1,500 that it be made in the United States? For those of us that live here, I know that's a factor. I know that there's a lot of us that watch this that don't. So just, don't be a jerk about this, but I know that folks that live here do care about that. And actually, let's say this. Do you care that the guitar is made, for us, it's the United States, in the country where you live? Because if you live in Europe, maybe you're finding a good German brand, or you're finding a good English brand if you live in England, or if you live in South America, right? Like, do you care that it no longer is coming from East Asia, that it is, and I don't mean like a Japanese ESP or Japanese Ibanez or something. I mean, you know what I mean? We're talking import guitars like we talk about import guitars. Do you care if it is or is not that at $1,500? I'm asking you. It's okay either way, but how much does country of origin start to matter at $1,500? For me personally, it depends on the guitar. If the brand, so here's what I'll say. I want the guitar to be made, this is even more fair to everybody, where the brand originated. Okay? So if it's a Japanese company, I want it to come from Japan. If it's an American company, I want it to come from America. If it's a Canadian company, I want it to come from Canada. If it's, you understand what I'm saying? I don't want to buy a Seagull. Well, that's an acoustic guitar. What's the electric guitar that everybody talks about from Canada? There's import ones and there's not import ones. So I want it to come from where the country where the guitar originated from. That's probably more fair to all of our international watchers, because that's really kind of what we're talking about here. I think it's really important. There's a lot of things we start to get into bigger money that are less tangible, right? They're less tangible than just better parts. $1,500 to $1,800 should be perfect or close to perfect. I want you to define that. Okay? We're going to hold everybody's feet to the fire today, and we're going to define, what does perfect mean? Okay? At $1,500, you can get a really good Texas Toast guitar. I agree. North of England. Okay. What actually determines the cost of a guitar? Is it the wood's quality and the hardware's quality? Is there a difference in the pickups other than the number of turns? So there's tons of differences. The hardware quality, the quality of the frets. I don't mean the fret work. I mean the actual frets, the actual metallurgy in the frets, the bridges, the screws, all that kind of stuff. The quality of the plastics, all very, very much. The quality of the wood, and I don't mean for the sake of tone. I mean for the sake of the construction of the guitar, the look of the guitar, the quality of the finish, the type of the finish that it has. Of course, country of origin matters because labor is a thing, and where parts come from versus where the guitar is made and how much it costs to ship it all over the place. All those things matter, right? They all are a piece of this. $1,500, I'd like it to have a made in the USA. If it's a USA brand, I wouldn't pay that much for an Epiphone made in China. Okay, that's kind of where I'm going with it too. I want a guitar made where it's made. Now, here's the thing. Some of that's not going to happen, okay? You're not going to get a Les Paul Standard for $1,500. Those are $3,000, okay? So that's just is what it is. Okay, I don't care where it's made. As an American, I prefer buying American-made guitars. I don't expect many options in that world at $1,500. I don't necessarily care where it's made, but I like having it American-made when you can personally. That's kind of the way I am too. Some things you can't avoid, but some things you can. So where you can, you do what you can. Godin, thank you. That's what I was trying to think of. Thank you very much. Okay. Now this is an interesting comment, and this is why we're going to have the conversation. We're really going to dive into this. I'm actually leaving a lot of time for the 2000 and above. I think a lot of the price above $1,500 is getting into superfluous territory, meaning that it will sound and play awesome at $1,500, but beyond that, the price is more about individual customization. Okay. So we're talking, everybody reminded me of Godin. Thank you so much. Supporting American workers when it makes sense, and more about that than the guitar itself. Okay. High-end import or an entry-level made in Mexico or made in the United States. Okay. Les Paul Studio, those are rad. Perfect would be about $1,800 Gibson. Yeah, you can get an $1,800 Gibson for that. Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for clarifying, Dylan. Okay, very good. Okay, so this is interesting because, and I'm glad that the gentleman who talked about the superfluous brought this up. So this is very good because when we start to get into because $1,500 is sketchy, not sketchy. It's very uncommon to have an American-made guitar at $1,500. These days, it takes $2,000 really. Now you can get some Fenders at $1,500, but they're pretty basic. So let's talk about 2,000. We'll just go 2,000 and above. How about that? Because it has been my contention for a few years now that between $2,000 and $2,500, if you want to get what I would consider to be a proper version of whatever it is, musical instrument, okay, that can be passed down for generations, that is 100% expected to be the piece of what it should be, like the representation of what this thing should be, okay, no matter what country it comes from. It could be from China, right? There's some Eastmans that are in the $2,000 area. So it doesn't matter. The representation of the brand, like the peak of the brand. And now, okay, so for example, a Les Paul is $3,000, but there's reasons for that. That guitar, it doesn't just throw itself together. There's a lot there, okay? So anything at $2,000 and above, now we're really into the territory where these are the real thing. These are not the copies of the thing. These are not the Asian versions of the thing. These are not knockoffs of the thing. This is the real thing. Now we're getting into real thing territory. This is what I care about. I don't want I want the thing to be the real thing. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go buy an Anderson Strat, or that doesn't mean that I'm going to go buy, for example, if Texas Toast Guitars came out tomorrow with, they did. Texas Toast Guitars came out with, last couple weeks ago, they came out with, it's just under $2,000, I think, a Telecaster. And it's beautiful. And it's made in the United States. It's handmade, it's like a handmade guitar, no CNC machines. Like, it's beautiful. This guitar is beautiful. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. That makes total sense to me because there's a bunch there. There's a lot of non-tangibles there. First of all, the guitar is perfect. It's great, right? You don't have to worry about it. The neck's good. The frets are good. Everything is good. The customer service behind it is good. So if you have a problem, it's two guys. It's Matt and Chris. You could just go get one. You can just go talk to them, say, hey, there's a problem, and they'll solve it. You know what I mean? Check out the hook with my DJ revolves it kind of thing. It'll just be done. So then also there's some provenance there. One of the things that I think a lot of folks do not give enough attention to is pride of ownership. I think when you are passionate about a hobby or a subject, having the real thing and enjoying the real thing lends itself to better applying yourself to whatever hobby or interest that is. You know what I mean? There's a thing, and I know you've all felt it at some point, and it doesn't even need to be about guitars. It could be in your job, okay? It could be in, whatever. It doesn't matter. It could be in a hobby. It could be in your job. It could be in taking care of your kids. It could be in cooking your dinner, whatever, where you have the cheap version of the tool. Or, you bought a barbecue grill, right? And you bought you've had, let's say, maybe not even, you don't even think about it, but you bought whatever Charbroil Home Depot grill for $199, right? And you've been grilling on it for 20 years and it's fine. And it's time to get a new one. And you're like, I wonder, now that I really enjoy this, if I could be better if I bought something better, right? And then you start going and looking at what they cost, and you're like, holy crap, all of a sudden I can spend $1,500 on a grill, and the last one I bought was $300. That makes no sense to me. But then somewhere in the back of your mind, you're like, wait a minute. If I have this better tool, then I know for sure that I will not be held back by the tool itself, right? And there is really something powerful to that. If you have a good guitar that's really good and is really cool, and everybody else thinks it's like the one, then you know for sure that you're not being held back by your equipment. You cannot say that about a $300 guitar. Could I sound better? Well, of course you could practice more, but are you going to want to? This whole being inspired to, the desire to, the creativity, all those things are fed by pride of ownership. And so for all the people that are like, I'd rather have 17 Harley Bentons, okay, what that is you are a cheap guitar collector. You are not a guitar player, right? There's a difference between investing in the craft and just collecting some cheap guitars. Because anybody can, post a bunch of cheap stuff on Instagram and, you can rent a Lamborghini and look cool, but we all know the real story. So, and that's the thing. Like sometimes we place a limit on ourselves because we think we don't deserve it, because we think we shouldn't have it or whatever. That's just all self-limiting beliefs, right? We get into some psychology here, but the bottom line is having something nice is nice. And I think those are the things. So all that being said, I want to put all that kind of like, oh yeah. And people are going to be like, that's a bunch of psychological mumbo jumbo so you can justify having an expensive guitar. Guess what? I don't need to justify anything. Know why? Because I like what I like. I don't have to justify it. Whether you like it or not, I don't care. Whether my friends like it or not, I don't care. I like what I like. It doesn't matter. I don't have to justify anything. You don't either. Who are you justifying your guitar purchases to? Right? that's on you. That's nothing to do with me. So now, all that to be said, $2,000 and up. What do you expect for your guitar over $2,000? Do you care how many pieces are laminated to make the body of your wood guitar? Does an expensive guitar have to be a one-piece body? Are all the cheaper ones laminated? So I want at $2,000, I want at least only a two-piece body. I don't always care about a one-piece. Sometimes two-piece is cool because they'll do neat things with the grain, right? So I don't want a multi-piece body at $2,000 for sure. Does it matter? No, but I want it that way, right? That's like if you spent $70,000 on a car and it didn't have heated seats. That would be stupid. Are they necessary? No, but it would just be stupid if they didn't come with it. So that's kind of where we are with this stuff, right? So yes, I want at least only a two-piece body, maybe only a one-piece body at $2,000. Let's see. Is he drinking whiskey? I am. I'm actually drinking some scotch because normally on Tuesdays, I have a bunch of things to do on Tuesday night. And so I actually never drink on Tuesdays. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have a cocktail with the podcast today. And, if you don't like the fact that I'm drinking before 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, come back and watch in an hour. It'll be after 5 o'clock. I like taking a moderate price guitar and pimping it out. Yeah, I agree. I'm a poor guitar player. So when I got my Pacifica given to me, let's see. I knew it was all I'd ever need in a guitar. Dude, that's rad. That's rad. Thanks for the 10 things video. Oh, excellent. Very good. I totally get it. And I totally get that. And you can get that from a $200 guitar. You can. Yeah. The Charbroil or the Big Green Egg. The grill is on my mind because I bought a Rectech this weekend. I used to have a Rectech and I sold it. And then when we lived in the motorhome, and I've been longing for one ever since. And so I got one this weekend. Let's see. Thoughts on Kiesel guitars? I think they're cool. Those style of guitars are not my personal thing, but I would really like to own one anyway because I think they're cool. Let's see. I feel like everybody, $2,000. I want American or Japan made, real woods, meaning mahogany is mahogany, not some adjacent wood in that family. Excellent point. Okay. Flawless finish work and frets, premium and pickups and hardware. Yes. I think for $2,000, you should be able to get like my pickups, like the great, my stuff. You don't have to get my stuff. I'm just saying, or something that good, right? Like I think you should be able to get really good pickups at $2,000. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. At this point, you should basically kind of be able to get whatever you want. Now, the trick's going to be, you're not always going to get it from the big brands. You're not going to get a Les Paul Standard for $2,000, like I said. But are you going to be able to go get something built from a small builder for $2,000 or something adjacent? Yeah, probably, Yeah, no, that's great. Over $2,000, highly figured drop top. Oh yeah, we talked about that. Not necessarily stainless steel, high top end pickups and electronics, lightweight. Yes. Very good. Yep. For people who buy and sell a lot of guitars, sometimes we end up buying high end brand guitars just so that they have a good resale value. We can easily get out of it if we don't love it. Yeah. I'm not a big reseller, but I get that for sure. Yeah, this is awesome, you guys. Now we're getting a lot less comments on the $2,000 and up. My guess is because some of you don't have guitars that are $2,000 and up. If you don't, comment anyway. I want to know what's on your mind. I don't care what we can or can't afford. We're all just guitar players. So let's talk about it, even if we can't afford it. You know what I mean? Cannot. You know what I mean? There are quite a few $2,000 Fender and Gibsons where I would change the pickups on day one. Yeah, I know. Me too. But honestly, that's just because I'm a pickup guy and I have very specific things that I like. But I also think it's not necessary. You know what I mean? Now, $3,000 material really comes into the equation when considering guitars like your Sable. Okay, that guitar's $4,000. That Sable is $3,800. And yeah, now acoustics are different because acoustics are completely different. They take more space to build. They take more equipment, honestly, than electric guitars. There's a lot of wild tooling and stuff and a lot of time and a lot of waste. And so acoustics are definitely $2,000. I start wanting a set neck guitar. Interesting, because that doesn't really factor in that much. A set neck is a set neck guitar versus a bolt-on guitar it's a very interesting thing. To me, that's a stick shifter automatic. Okay. So, that's basically what you're into. Yes, I would like to have a bunch of cars with manual transmissions, but I also really like having a fast shifting DSG because it's actually faster. So once you start to appreciate both things, it doesn't really matter how much it costs as long as you understand where it fits in your arsenal. I know a lot of people want to assign a value to bolt-on versus set neck, but it just doesn't. There is not a monetary division there. A lot of people want to do that because they think it's cheaper. Because for a long time there was a price difference there, but it's just not the case. So just that's okay. If you at $2,000, if you want that's fine. But I don't think it's something that we need to be preaching to everybody that, if it's under $2,000, it shouldn't be, $2,000 custom built with your pickups. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, this is fun. The new Hustler is over $2,000 and it looked like it has your engraved pickups. It does. It does have our engraved pickups in it. As a bass player, I've always thought the neck through was the mark of high end. I get that. Yep, I get that. At $2,000, I don't want to have to change anything, and nothing should need to be upgraded. The fretwork should be amazing, and the fretboard edges should be rolled, and ideally, it will have a nitro finish. Okay, so there's a couple things in there. $2,000 is going to be the very minimum where you're going to start to see that stuff. Just FYI. I don't want to rain on your parade too negatively. I love that you want that stuff, but you're more reliably going to get it at 25 or 3. Okay. A couple years ago, 15 to 2, but now we're at 25 to 3 for what you're talking about. Just FYI. That's kind of a thing. Looking at Sweetwater, I'd like a Fender Tele Ultra 2, and all my guitars are over 2,000. Yeah, the Ultra 2 is a cool guitar if you like that stuff, for sure. That Ultra 2 has noiseless pickups in it, but other than that, I really like that guitar a lot. I really like everything about the Fender American Ultra 2. However, I would order one of your loaded pick guards at the same time to replace the noiseless pickups. Same. Yeah, no, I get that. If I'm getting something like a Rickenbacker for $2,000, I'm expecting some inconsistencies because of the hand tooling, but I'm expecting to be more guitar, if that makes sense. Okay, Robot, let's talk about that. That's an interesting take, and I love that you brought this up. Okay. Everybody wants machined guitars to be cheaper because they're made on machines. But everybody wants handmade guitars to be perfect because they cost so much. But those are fighting. Those work against each other. So here's what you have. You have guitars that are made mostly with machines and then a bunch of handwork that are, probably up to $4,000 probably. Then you start to get into everything's handmade. I'm talking about from big brands. And then you can go above that and get perfection. But a guitar that's made by hand that is 100% perfect is $8,000. It's $8,000. A guitar that is got some handwork in it is $5,000. If it's handmade, right? I'm talking like really good stuff. Because I've been around a lot of that stuff. I've been around a bunch of that stuff, and man, now you're talking big money. Because hours and hours and hours and hours to get a piece of wood to be perfect takes a long time. It really does. Yeah. Let's see. Have you found private sales to be more reasonable prices as people are not as in tune with some items can bring price wise today? I don't buy used guitars. I'm not there's a few things I don't really buy used, and that's one of them. I don't buy used pocket knives, and I don't buy used guitars. I'll buy a used car every once in a while, but man, I like to have my own. I like to make my own wear on my own stuff because I take care of my stuff. All of my stuff looks brand new. And so I really care about that. That's like I'm really care about that. And so I don't buy used stuff, typically. And if that means that I have to put a purchase off because I have to save up for it longer, I will do that. It took me a long time to get my first Les Paul. It took me a long time to get, my first Martin, really nice stuff. But it took me a long time, like years longer than I thought, actually. Even doing this for a living, to get to the point where I could get that stuff because I wanted, because here's the thing. On some of that stuff, so I'll buy, we've talked about this before. I've kind of got like two departments here at DylanTalksTone. One is guitars we buy for the channel and like do projects and stuff. And then my personal collection. My personal collection doesn't go anywhere. I never sell it. I'll keep those guitars for years and years and years if I can. Provided everything goes the way it needed to go. So I'll always have my Martin. So I didn't want a used one because I want it from new and I want to keep it for the rest of my life. So that's kind of where my brain goes with that stuff. So I don't really buy used stuff. My first brand new guitar was actually in 2016. I've been playing since the mid 80s, I guess. And I never got a brand new guitar until 2016. I'm over custom guitars. I'd rather get something that suits me and customize it. Okay. Yeah, cool. No, I dig that. I dig that a lot. Makes sense. Yeah, man, this is fun. Dude, I appreciate this, you guys. This is really cool because it's interesting that a lot less people had a lot less to say about the $2,000 thing. Here's the thing I'm going to mention to you, and I'm really impressed. Basically, nobody dogged at, maybe they didn't want to be embarrassed by it because everybody else is pretty positive. Nobody was super negative today. I dig that a lot about this subject because can be very negative in the comments section, right? About this when you start talking about price. Nobody talked about budget anything. We just let each of these guitars, and this is something that I think about, is that each of these price points have a reason to exist. And this is one of the things I wanted to talk about today is I hear all the time in comment sections and, various chats and stuff that nobody's going to buy a guitar that costs over $2,000. It's just not true. Fender and Gibson and PRS, they're selling as many guitars as they can make, and they are upping production. The guitars that are actually oversold right now are the imports. So, when we talk about inventory sitting around, it's not Gibson Les Pauls. Okay. It's Squiers. It's so that's the thing. So understanding why that is, and thinking about what is important to people and understanding that some of these features cost more money, right? There's going to be the just as good as guys that expect everything that we talked about for $400, but you all know that is not possible, right? You all know that that's not possible. And that's a really interesting conversation to have. And I hope for those of you that do think that didn't speak up today, gives you a little food for thought, and as choices are put in front of you from $500 to $1,000 to $1,500 to $2,000 and more than that you start to really analyze and look at those guitars for what they are, not what you want them to be for a particular amount of money. All of us are like, man, I wish I could get a Les Paul for $500, right? Or whatever it is. If you're not a Les Paul guy, I'm just using that as an example. Man, I wish I could get a D28 for $500. Well, you can't. You can't. So it should be more about what these guitars as they stand on themselves instead of comparing them with others things. That whole just as good as mentality is very destructive to the community, right? Like if we just let each thing be in its own tier and go, you know what? Yeah, the $2,000 and up tier is not for me right now. What can I get and what should I expect for $500 or $1,000? And then modify it or whatever, right? But let each of those things exist where they are. And you'll be a lot happier with what you have. And your friends will be a lot happier with you. And you might have some friends, since you're not talking crap, about their expensive stuff. You know what I mean? Just an interesting conversation. The other part of this is that simply spending a lot of money doesn't automatically mean that you get a guitar that is good for you personally. Yeah. So I always say, buy the best guitar that you can and that you actually want, right? No excuses. This is fun. This is a hobby. This is art. This is for you. So buy the guitar that you want, the best one you can afford, no excuses. I don't want to hear in the comments, well, this is okay because, I compromise because blah, 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 blah. Like sometimes we have to. But that should not be the goal, especially if we're doing this stuff for fun. This is all fun, right? Yeah. Super cool. Yeah, man, this is a blast. Thank you all for this conversation. Only one thumbs down Frank today, which is pretty wild for the amount of people that are here watching. I love this. For those of you that are watching later, get in the chat and get in the comments below and add to this conversation. I'm sure we'll talk about it some more in the future. Super cool. Thanks for hanging out, y'all. We'll see you in the next one.